Hello, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I did not feel like filming today. It's so gloomy and chilly and just everything that you could hope for in a cozy reading day, but not necessarily if you want some nice sunshine for filming. Because it's so chilly and dreary, I wanted to film over here by my lovely fall flowers. First things first, I have to tell you about two shortest books that I read in October. And the first is Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulson. This is a graphic novel. It's very cute and sweet. It's very short. It's only a little over 100 pages, maybe 120. And the colors are just so perfect for autumn. And the story itself is just very low stakes. Garlic, our main character, has some anxiety issues, and she might be the only one who is equipped to go and meet the newest resident of their area, which is a vampire. I won't tell you what happens after that, but it's very cute, it's sweet, nothing but cozy content. The other really short book that I read this October was The Mysteries of Thorn Manor. This is the follow-up to the book Sorcery of Thorns, which I also read last month in my It Happened in the Library video. I think it could have been added to the end of Sorcery of Thorns. It didn't add a whole lot to the plot. There were no high stakes that were introduced, of course, because it's so short, but it almost feels like an epilogue, just a little bit of bonus time with our main characters, a little more time seeing their romance develop. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Funnily enough, I think my comparison between Sorcery of Thorns and Beauty and the Beast, House Moving Castle, I would say that this book kind of felt like Beauty and the Beast too. I'm glad I read it, but it didn't add a whole lot to my experience having read the first book. I read one of my most anticipated books of the year last month, and that was Alebrijes by Donna Barba Higuera. Beautiful cover design with a cutout. There are illustrations throughout by David Alvarez, and as far as the story goes, this book's setting is really bleak. So if you're looking for something that makes you feel cozy and comforted, this might not be the one for you right now. This is a dystopian novel set in the aftermath of climate change. Pocketel is a city that's built on a desert-like landscape, and jungle and rivers and forest are only legendary at this point in time. Pocketel is governed by an oppressive system with the descendants of one culture as the wealthy upper-class Pocketelians, a middle class of merchants who are looked down upon, the mongers, and at the bottom are the cascabels, the working poor who are housed in cheap homes outside the city limits and survive on limited rations from their work in the potato fields. Leandro and his little sister Gabby are the two that we're following. They're orphans, they're at the bottom of this society, and they have plans and dreams to escape the city and find that oasis that they've heard sung about. They work in the potato fields and they supplement their scarce provisions with the occasional pickpocketing. One day they're doing that in the marketplace, and Gabby is caught with an expensive piece of fruit, a bright red strawberry, in her hand. Leandro quickly acts to distract people, to take the fault for the theft, and he is the one who accepts Gabby's punishment, to be exiled, sent outside the protection of the city into the wild desert, which is riddled with giant sandworms. But just before Leandro is sent away, he's pulled aside by a sympathetic figure in a twist of fate. His consciousness is going to be uploaded to an Alebrijes, a tiny winged drone, and he'll fly off across the desert to find the other Alebrijes, children who were likewise transformed until they could be brought back to a safer Pocketel. I love this author's writing style. She really strikes that perfect balance between excellent world building and character development that you can see throughout the course of the novel. She doesn't describe every nook and cranny, but by the time you turn the last page, you realize that you're picturing things that you didn't see illustrations for. The settings really get burned into your imagination. imagination. Something that I loved about this one in the Glass Quintista were that many of the lines and phrases are left in the original Spanish. Don't let that intimidate you if you only have an elementary knowledge of Spanish. If you're not afraid about pausing briefly to look things up, you're going to be rewarded because those lines are repeated. They're not things that you have to learn afresh each time. This book has strong themes of seeing people at their core instead of seeing them as other, and finding connection instead of simply surviving. I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This one has cover art with an image by Kin Ki Tai, and the design is by Cassie Gonzalez. June has spent the last several years caring for her ailing grandmother and waiting for fate to catch up with her. The women in her family are subject to a unique curse, a mysterious illness. When they reach a certain age, each of the Farrow women begin to see, hear, and smell things that aren't there. June has begun to experience some of those same symptoms, hallucinations or visions that begin innocently enough, a stray dream or two, but then they creep into the daylight hours and slowly unravel her grip on what's real and what's imagined. I'm so glad that I personally went into this one without a full synopsis, because it very much puts you in June's perspective. You don't have all the information, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Why is she seeing these things? Why is she feeling this way? So figuring it out as you go is the key here, and I'm gonna leave you in that state. One thing to say about Adrienne Young is she really knows how to create atmosphere. She is the queen of setting a mood. It's really gonna make you feel like you're watching a mini-series, and each chapter just leaves you grasping for more. The heart of this one is about the many doors that we choose whether to walk through in life, the choices we make that shape who we become and who we choose to love. The only reason that this one was 4 stars for me was because I wasn't mentally able to grasp the resolution of this story. The resolution of the main problem, if you will. If you like Marvel movies, you might also like this one for that reason. Another book that I was really excited to read last month, and it lived up to my excitement, was Nothing Else But Miracles by Kate Albus. I gave this one 5 stars. I was so excited to get to this one because I had read Kate Albus' other book, A Place to Hang the Moon, and it was a favorite. It's so cozy and comforting, it just feels like a children's classic. We're following 12-year-old Dory Byrne and her 2 brothers, one older, one younger, who are holding things down on the Lower East Side while their pop is off fighting in World War II. Before he left, their dad promised to send them monthly checks, but he also reminded them that if there was anything else that lay outside of that, the neighborhood would give them what they need. For a while, everything's pretty good. They miss their dad, but there's a lady from the bakery who saves them leftover pastries, there's a kind landlord who checks in on them, and Mr. Caputo, who treats them to a free dinner in his Italian restaurant every Thursday night. Without giving away one of my favorite plot twists of the book, if you like the Boxcar Children like I did growing up, there's a change in these children's circumstances, their home in the neighborhood is threatened, and the siblings need to find a new place to live. The setting of old New York and the vibes of a neighborhood that actually cares for one another, miracles coming from unexpected places. One of the things Kate Albus does best is writing realistic sibling dynamics. So everyone has their good and bad days, right? And some days kids are cranky and they act out and often need to make amends with one another. And you see that play out in this book. This is a middle grade that will treat your inner child. I highly recommend, 5 stars. Lastly, I have to talk about the book that I waited a bit to read, but I was recommended so many times on my channel, I decided to finally pick it up. And that is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is a historical fiction. You could also call it a literary fiction. One day, Daniel's father wakes him up early in the morning, takes him through the winding streets of Barcelona to the cemetery of forgotten books. Daniel is given his choice of one book, a rare edition, to take, read, and protect as his own. He chooses The Shadow of the Wind by author Julian Carax. This story fascinates Daniel, and he sets out to find any other books by the author. Little does he know that another figure is chasing down the author's work and meticulously burning every last copy. As Daniel grows older, he becomes increasingly drawn into the mystery of what happened to the author Julian. And as he investigates this mystery, his own life is threatened. There are some striking similarities to what happens to Daniel, what has happened to Julian in the past, and what is happening in the story, The Shadow of the Wind. As far as atmosphere goes, this book reminded me a lot of Phantom of the Opera or Dracula. It has that kind of misty, cold, gray tone to it. The difference between this book and others that I mentioned that are Gothic tales would be how the male gaze is written. And it's not just exclusive to some characters in order to flesh out who they are and how they think. It's kind of across the board. Every male protagonist or antagonist in this book has a kind of creepy male gaze. There's only one female character that gets actual play in the storytelling in this novel, and that's in the last third of the book. And all the others are simplified to their age, their appearance, and their social status. You could say that the content is status quo for the time that it was written or the setting of the story, but this book was published in 2001, so I kind of feel it doesn't get to use that excuse. There are a whole lot of sexist references and domestic violence in this story, and they're written in a way that require you as the reader to know right from wrong. So if you have someone that's reading this and they have like violent tendencies or they're just misogynistic, they're not going to be corrected by one of the protagonist's voices. It's just kind of accepted in this story. You as the reader have to insert that morality over this story. I'm so torn because the way this story came together and even the descriptive writing that a lot of other readers pointed as the reason they didn't like this book, I actually enjoyed. I'm personally wondering if the issues are better or more resolved in the next book, Angel's Game. If you've read that one or read the rest of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, I would love to know. Please let me know in the comments if it gets better or if you think it ends up being worth it. I would love to be persuaded to continue in the series because I really did enjoy the first book. I just feel like I need a good break before I'm willing to read more of the same. If I had to pin down why this book is so beloved with so many readers, I have to say that beyond the haunting nature of this book's setting and the mirror style tale, book within a book, bookception we have going on in this one, it probably boils down to how much this book talks about the magic of reading. So those are all of the outstanding books that I read in October. It was a pretty great reading month, all things considered. And I'm still working my way through a couple that I've started that month that I will be sharing with you later when I finish them. Still have a few of the books that I put on my TBR for October. It's still fall, right? I set a fall TBR so I can read them this month. It doesn't matter. I'd love to know if you've been enjoying what you're reading or if you're looking for recommendations. I'd love to know when my recommendations are hitting home and when maybe they brought another title to mind that people wouldn't normally think about. If you've made it this far in the video and you don't really have anything to comment, go ahead and use the sunflower emoji to let me know you watched it through to the end. And I look forward to seeing you in another video soon. Happy reading!